Hi everyone, my name is TJ Gonen. I'm the head of cloud at Checkpoint Software, one of the largest security providers in the world. And today we're going to talk about cloud security. We're not just going to talk about cloud security and I'm going to pitch all sorts of products to you. Actually, we're going to talk about the key principles for you to think of when you're trying to think about your journey into cloud security. And actually, like the title here says, it's a bit different than the title you saw in the agenda, but it's mostly the same concept. It's either now or it might be too late for you. And I'm going to explain why. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm actually trying to give you tools and way to think about cloud security. So let's get right into it. I'm going to go over what actually changes in cloud security. You know, cloud security is such a big word. Cloud and security and just the buzzword cloud security is sometimes overused. I'm going to talk about what actually changes and the way to think about cloud security. Not everything changes. We're going to see that some of the key principles that you've been working with actually never changed. But some things totally change, and I want to give you and highlight which ones actually change so you know how to tackle them. Then we're going to talk about the key principles for modern cloud native security. This is really the meat of my 15 minutes of glory here to tell you about how I think about cloud security, how we at Checkpoint think about cloud security, and to give you real actionable tools and principles that you can follow in your journey. And then we're going to talk a bit about what's next, what type of things can you actually take action on. Let's start with what is really happening here in cloud security. So I think there's two things that are happening in cloud security. One of them is going to sound very obvious to you because you know it. Your data centers and your applications are transforming. So we used to have our applications in one place. Now they're moving to the cloud, right? So they used to be in our control. Now they're moving to the cloud. We used to have our applications on-premise, singular, three-tier applications. Now they're all over the cloud, distributed. And a lot of us are actually using multi-cloud environments. So we use AWS and sometimes we use Azure and GCP. And now we're seeing Oracle and AliCloud and all sorts of stuff. But that piece, I think the fact that your data centers and applications are moving to the cloud, most of you are feeling. And if you're not feeling it now, you're going to feel it very soon because there's nothing, and it doesn't matter which industry you're in, that's going to stop that transition to cloud. People are moving to the cloud because it's more effective and it allows them to run faster without caring about infrastructure. So whatever organization you're in right now is going to go there because it's going to be a disadvantage from a competitive perspective if you're not moving to the cloud because, again, when you move to the cloud, you can move faster, period. It's not even about cost. It's about moving faster. But like I said, this part you guys actually know. Let's talk about what is changing that sometimes we forget to think about, that the shift to the cloud is more than just a technology shift. And you can see that around you inside your organization, I'm sure. The shift to the cloud moved the responsibility, and I would say the focus, from infrastructure into the developer and the application. And for us as security practitioners, that shift couldn't be bigger because we used to have that right basically to say, hey, stop before you go. I need to build security practices. I need to give you some guardrails. I need to tell you what to do. What you found out if you're already moving to the cloud is that in the cloud world, speed is at the center of everything. And for us as security people, we sort of lost the ability to say no. To a large extent, we can't say no anymore. If the developer and the application developers and the application people, generally speaking, have a business initiative that they need to achieve in order to be in a competitive position, we cannot stop them. We can almost not stop them. We need to find ways to say yes. And that is a very big shift. Another very big shift in that mindset. So the mindset is security's job is to stay out of the way rather than put guardrails. Let's dive into a bit more specifically what changes and what doesn't change. Most of us that are in the security space for more than 2 seconds, we used to have a security blueprint for our data center. It used to be, hey, we have a data center, we're going to put network security and threat prevention in the north-south, the entrance to our entrance to our data center. A lot of you did it with Checkpoint, the company I'm working for today and leading the cloud business. But most of you put a firewall, a next generation firewall from Checkpoint, a gateway, and you did threat prevention to do segmentation. A lot of you, most of you, I hope, are doing security posture management. You do vulnerability scanning, patch management. You make sure that your data center is ready from a security perspective. That's called posture management. You looked at our operating system, you check them out, you add patch management like I mentioned. All of these things have been there forever, and a lot of you are practicing it. Now you have applications in your data center. You used to have, or you still have, an application security infrastructure and definitely a process and paradigm in place. web application firewalls, and all sorts of stuff like that. Intelligence and threat hunting. So for the ones of you that are a bit more advanced and you used to have network detection and response, something that sits across your entire data center, tries to correlate information from across the data center and find advanced threats. Now this blueprint is the blueprint you currently have. If you have a data center, which I assume all of you have a data center, even if it's not in the cloud, this is your current security blueprint. Now the strange thing, even though we always talk about how different cloud security is that this blueprint doesn't really change. You need to carry the same principles and the same pillars here into the cloud. What really changes though is scale and speed. And that is the biggest difference conceptually and actually in the move to the cloud. Everything that you do in the cloud is just at immense scale and speed. So if you look at your network security, threat prevention, your security gateway, that security gateway now needs to find itself in 100 different data centers with one script that the DevOps guy actually just deployed. He can deploy a data center. Your DevOps guys, your application people can deploy a data center in the cloud with a script. So what happens to your next generation gateway at the entrance to this data center? They actually need to be there at the speed of DevOps. The same thing as scale. Think about it. Your data center is now flexible. It's elastic. It can scale to infinity basically from a bandwidth perspective. How do you make sure that your network security and threat prevention can scale to infinity? That is exactly the challenge here, scale and speed. The same thing happens for posture management. If you look at posture management prior to the cloud, you needed to take care of your own stuff, your own machines, your own applications, your own operating systems. You needed to patch them, which was still a hustle. Now think what happens in the cloud. When your deployment can scale from 10 virtual machines in the cloud to 1,000 virtual machines in the cloud, to Kubernetes clusters, to serverless functions, again, with a script. With a script. How do you handle configurations, security configurations, and posture management? How do you ask questions like, is my virtual machine properly configured? Am I still PCI compliant? In an environment where your developer can launch a data center with a script and your number of assets or the number of things that you need to measure posture for can scale to infinity. That is the biggest challenge. Security posture management in the cloud conceptually is not different. You've been doing this before. The biggest challenge is scale and speed. The same thing goes for application security. Now, the only difference I would say with application security is that application security was always hard. It was hard even before the cloud because it was really hard to keep application security solutions fine-tuned to adapt to application changes, even before the cloud. Now, what happens is the cloud is now your applications, your cloud native applications, are using microservices like containers and serverless functions and then virtual machines. And they are all over the place and they are changing on a daily basis. Now, if you thought application security was hard before the cloud, just think how hard is it to maintain a proper application security posture, a configured web application firewall when things change on a daily basis. So again, the concept is not different. You still need to do application security. The biggest difference is that you need to do it at the scale and speed of cloud native applications. And by the way, it's not just web applications. Now it's API-based applications. How do you keep up? Again, the biggest challenge is to keep up. And the same thing goes for your intelligence and threat hunting solution. Now it needs to understand cloud constructs. It needs to understand cloud flows. It needs to understand these new types of cloud networks. Containers talking with containers, containers talking with virtual machines, all of these talking through an API with the external world. How do you correlate information and make sense out of it? So the key thing that I want to tell you here is that nothing changes as far as the blueprint. Everything changes as far as scale and speed. So there's three principles here: security, automated, everywhere. And I really urge you to think in these lines when you look at your next process or initiative around cloud security. So let's start with security. Security starts in the cloud with proper posture. By the way, it always started with proper posture. You always wanted to make sure that whatever your virtual machine doesn't have, or your machine, even if it's a physical machine, doesn't have vulnerabilities, it's patched and all that good stuff. In the cloud, that problem is 1,000 times more complex because like I mentioned, if your developer is using virtual machines in the cloud, it can use 100 different services tomorrow. You need to make sure that they're properly configured, that they have least privileges, that you're still compliant. All of that stuff changes so fast. Posture in the cloud. And if you read research, it is the posture or improper posture is the cause for 90% of cloud breaches. And it makes perfect sense if you think about it, because how the hell are you going to be able to keep all this stuff maintained? How do you make sure that you don't have open bucket to the public internet, or a machine that can talk with the public internet that you didn't mean for it to talk with the public internet, when again, your developer can deploy all this stuff with a script. So posture, proper posture is key to be able to do that across multi-cloud environment in order to prevent a breach. The second thing is prevention. We at Checkpoint, we've been about prevention for the last 27 years, since we invented literally the firewall. Prevention is even more important in the cloud. Let me emphasize this point. You do not have time for detection. You just do not have time. Think about what we just talked about the scale and speed we all have to deal with. You just do not have time for alerts on top of alerts on top of alerts. You need to prevent. In order to prevent, though, you need technology that can actually prevent, that can be accurate enough to prevent. But you do not have time for detection. So prevention was always important. At Checkpoint, we always believed in prevention, and we always drove prevention. In the cloud, it's even more important because you just don't have time to deal with anything else. The second key pillar is automation. Everything you do in posture and prevention has to be automated. Now, there's two reasons or two places where you need to automate. There's the presence of security, and there's the actual security configuration itself. Let me emphasize this point here. The people you are trying to protect in the cloud, or the stuff you're trying to protect in the cloud, has been totally automated. Your developers and your application teams have been spending the last 10 years fully automating their application development lifecycle. CI/CD, DevOps, all that stuff is all around automating application lifecycle. Now comes the cloud and automates infrastructure. Everything in the cloud, the infrastructure is automated. We as security have to automate our security practices in order to keep up. If we can't automate, we're not going to be able to keep up. There's two things you need to think about that you need to automate. One is the presence of security, what I have DevOps there. It should be as easy or as automated for security to be where it needs to be, just as it is to deploy the application. Think about it. If your developer decides to deploy a container in the cloud, and you think that you need container security, that's part of your blueprint. The container security needs to be there as automated as that deployment in the cloud was. If you're deploying a new application to the cloud and you decided that you need application security, it has to be there automatically. You're not going to have the time to sit and say, oh, just a second, you deployed an application, let me put something there. No, it's just going to be there, and you're not going to be able to keep up. So security, the presence of security has to be automated. The second thing that has to be automated is the policies themselves. Like I mentioned at the beginning, you're not going to have time to fine-tune a firewall every time an application changes. You're not. You're not going to have time to fine-tune your serverless security solution every time someone changes a Lambda function on AWS. The security policies have to adapt automatically to the changes. And if you have a posture technology, it has to be able to run automatically, discover things automatically, and alert automatically without you sitting there and chasing the changes in your environment. So automation is the key principle you need to think in mind. The presence of security has to be automated, and the security policies themselves have to be automated. You're not going to have time. We have a saying at Checkpoint, and I suggest that you remember it. It ain't done till it's automated. Whatever process you're working on right now, unless you automated it from a security perspective, you're not done, because you're going to be left behind. And everywhere actually makes perfect sense, because if you remember what we talked about, you need to make sure that your security is automated everywhere, across multiple cloud environments, across different types of workloads, virtual machines, containers, servers, all that stuff has to be automated across everything. So this is your cloud security roadmap. And by the way, you can't solve for everything at day one. There's just no way. You need to be able to grow into it. So what I suggest to you here is sort of a roadmap to think about cloud security. You start where you always started, with cloud network prevention. Again, cloud network threat prevention, not just network threat prevention. Network threat prevention that can scale and move at the speed of the cloud. Then you can move to cloud security posture management. Super, super critical. These first two pieces are what I call elementary school. That's where you start. You start with cloud network threat prevention, and then you find a solution, by the way, because there's just no way to do this manually. You find a solution that can automate posture management in the cloud. Something that can go across your entire cloud environment, automatically detect changes, compare it to policies, predefined policies. Hopefully it will have a lot of predefined policies out of the gate. And if you need to be compliant with something, GDPR, PCI, it will have these security checks out of the gate, can scan your entire environment, alert and remediate, remember, prevention and remediate configuration problems in an accurate, comprehensive way. That's elementary school. You don't need to go anywhere else before you finish these two things. Network threat prevention, north-south, just like we did in your previous data centers, in your traditional data centers, and posture management. Then you can graduate to workload security, workload protection, because really at the end of the day, you're trying to protect the applications that are in the cloud. If there's nothing in the cloud, nothing is running, you don't need anything. So now you have our applications. There's two things here that I want you to think about. One, you need to think about because sometimes when you look inside the cloud and you see all these containers and servers and virtual machines, it's very easy to forget that all of these together make an application, and you need application security, but you need modern application security. Think about what I mentioned earlier. You need to have an application security solution that can automatically adapt to changes and will not require you to sit there and fine-tune firewall rules or web application firewall rules every time something changes in order to prevent false positives. And that is very different from whatever most of you are using today for application security. So modern cloud application security is automated. And then you can sort of zoom in into what's making these applications, virtual machines, containers, serverless, and think about how do I protect these containers? How do I make sure that they don't have vulnerabilities, that they are properly configured? And by the way, to have runtime protection that lives together with these workloads so I can do defense in depth. And if the serverless function or container is doing something it's not supposed to do, I'll be able to prevent that automatically. Now, again, you need to think about what I mentioned earlier. The presence of these controls has to be there automatically. You cannot be in a position where you need to deploy these things manually. And the last piece is cloud intelligence and threat hunting. When you graduate, this is sort of university. If application security and then containers and serverless and host security is sort of high school, graduate to college and you have cloud intelligence and threat hunting that can look across your entire cloud environment, understand the cloud constructs, understand cloud network flows, and bring up and surface up threats or stuff you should know at, and also take action and prevent them. All of this stuff is super important. Now, these are the pillars that we talked about earlier. The only thing that I've done here, or that I'm showing to you here, is that we split sort of the workload security into two pieces. Application security, think about all your stuff in the cloud as one application, and then zoom in into the containers or serverless and whatever is making these applications. I just want to spend a minute on a commercial break. At Checkpoint, we do way more than cloud. Checkpoint is one of the largest security providers in the world. We have solutions for network security, the leader in network security. We have solutions for remote access, remote user access, very advanced solutions with our Harmony platform. And we have our CloudGuard platform for unified multi-cloud security. And when you look at the modules or the capabilities in our platform, it really takes you through the journey. We have solutions for cloud network security that can adapt to cloud changes. We have the best solution out there for cloud security posture management, automated across your entire cloud environment with the ability to actually automatically remediate. It's going to be able to answer questions like, what do you have? Where is it? How can you change it? And all that good stuff. And then you have cloud workload protection. So that starts with application security. We have a patented technology that can automatically adapt to application changes with our automated application security. We call it application self-protection. And we have a super comprehensive automated solution for serverless security and container security. So again, takes you to the journey. And the last module in the CloudGuard platform is our cloud intelligence and threat hunting, which does exactly what it sounds like. When you take all of that together, we can run on AWS, GCP, Azure, and a few other cloud providers, which really helps you to solve the problem that we talked about. Anyway, what you could do next, by the way, you can head out to our site and start a free trial on our site. But generally speaking, even without the Checkpoint advertisement here, security automated everywhere is really where you should be going. Thank you very much and good luck in your cloud journey.